It probably would help if I actually click on the button and say on to stage. Hello, everybody. Dante Royster with Epic Mortgage, Epic Lunch and Learn. I think it's episode 62. I am solo dolo by myself. I was supposed to have a co-host, but unfortunately she cannot make it. We'll look to reschedule when time permits. Things like that happen. Things like that happen. Maybe the mortgage business got me ready for this new business, new venture. Or maybe this venture just gets me more prepared for the mortgage space. Things happen, right? People, have the best intentions and then things happen. Oh my God, my car won't start. Oh my God, flat tire. Knock on wood. Hopefully, none of those happen to me. But hey, things happen. You have to move forward. You have to move on. And so that's a part of the mortgage space. That's a part of just being a human being. Things happen. You have to adjust. You have to be having the willing and the will to, hey, make a new change, audible, right? We're, obviously, as you guys know, I'm a diehard Bears fan. Been watching the Bears since I was a little kid. Always been going, and that's what we do. You see the quarterback get up to the line, and he surveys the defense, seeing where the defense is, and he might have to call an audible. He might have to call an audible. He might have to hit his helmet, tap his helmet or something and say, hey, we gotta do a different play because that play is not going to work. And sometimes the best decision of a quarterback is getting them out of a bad play. So that's what we're doing today, calling an audible. We are going to go solo dolo. So I need your help, audience. If you're out there, I need your help today. Definitely hit me with some questions today. Today would be a great day for questions. Anything that you have. We can talk about 6-7. We can talk about kids, anything, but we'll talk and get through it today together. I wrote something down. Let's see what I wrote down today. I did try to make a quick agenda just so we could be, having a purpose today of talking. So we were talking today. I wanted to kind of just recap a lot of stuff that we actually mentioned in episode 61. We did an episode yesterday. Me and Vince were talking about just overall generalities in real estate and mortgages and just kind of our opinions leading into next year. And, we were talking about the silent market, right? Silent market of 2025. And the silent market tends to be, put them in, coach. Hey, man, this is what happens sometimes. Vince chimed in. Sometimes you have to call an audible. You get a phone call at 11:55 saying, oh, I can't make it. Okay. And then you have to call a quick audible and change it up and make it happen. So that's what we're doing today. But we were a silent market of 2025. Basically, with that being said, we were talking about how was 2025? I think at the end of the year, we start to evaluate just the year in itself and say, was it good? Was it not? What has worked? We're starting to do those self-evaluations that normally probably come at the end of the year, but it feels kind of weird. It's kind of, I think it really was the whole Thanksgiving. It was the whole Thanksgiving situation of like, Thanksgiving was obviously the last Thursday out of the month, but it just carried into the end of the month. And so a lot of people were able to, take, some people took a whole week off, some people took 4 or 5 days off, but everyone got to really recharge their batteries. And then you kind of get back to work on Monday, recognizing, well, you got about 3 weeks left to go. And then this year is pretty much a wrap. And then you start heading into the holidays of a 2-week hiatus of who's even working up until Christmas Eve. I think Christmas Eve this week or this year, Christmas Eve is on a Wednesday, which is Christmas is on Thursday. How is that week going to look? I mean, for some, Christmas Eve will be a half a day, if that. And then you have Christmas Day. And then I don't imagine too many people will want to come in on that Friday afterwards, leading into the weekend. And then once again, same thing over again with New Year's Eve. Obviously, people will work a little bit longer on New Year's Eve, but then you have New Year's Day and then the following day. So, you get that 2-week hiatus, which aligns with a lot of schools that are going to be off. Kids are going to be home. What do I do with the kids? Where do I put them? Am I going on vacation? All those types of things and questions that are asked in families. So really, we have 3 full weeks that I think everyone's like, okay, I got a little refresher. Let me try to wrap up some things for the end of the year. But this is the silent market time of real estate. This is an opportunity where a lot of people do check out, and this is a great opportunity for you to check in. You want to do opposite of the herd, right? You tend to want to go oppo of what the herd is doing. You want to make sure you have a designated plan, a designated strategy. And this morning I was on the phone with a realtor. He's an investor as well, and we were just talking, like, we talked probably for about an hour, on just different strategies and things and reasons why, and why do you think that, and what information are you, it's funny, we all gather information, but now that the world is so diverse and so big to some degree, information is coming and being disseminated from so many different people. So now it's almost like, well, what did you get? What did you learn? What did you hear? What did you not hear? And that's really what it is nowadays. I mean, it's not back in the 50s and 60s when it was a channel 2, 5, 7, and maybe channel 32, or channel 9, and that was it. That's all you had, and everything was being pumped out of basically 4 stations. But now there's 300 stations, 300 platforms, thousands probably. I mean, how many podcasts are out there? I mean, so it's such a vast amount of noise, and it's really hard to disseminate what is something I should be listening to, what is something I shouldn't be listening to. And I think that's why you have to always stick with your friends and close comrades that you hang around, that you really rely on their opinion, like, hey, what are you hearing? And almost get, you don't want to be in an echo chamber. I think a lot of times, a lot of people, tend to be in this echo chamber where they just want to hear, yeah, that's what you think. Yeah, that's what I think. That's what you think. That's what I think. But I think, hearing different information from different people, different ideologies, different beliefs, I think that's so helpful. So you have a better just feel and engage on what do you think. But, when thinking about the market right now, when thinking about real estate, I think the winter season is actually a great time to buy. You have less competition, more negotiation possibilities with the sellers. I think there's still products out there that are available. Down payment assistance is still available. Not as many grants, but there are some grant programs that are out there. And from an investor, sometimes, you can get a good deal. You just have to choose it right. And so, really developing those strategies now and trying to figure out what's the best time to maneuver, at least can put you in the right direction as you look into 2026. I wrote down this: why 25 felt slow on the surface. 25 was a weird year. I feel like when we got into 25, there was so much optimism. There was so much optimism on the concept of, hey, I think things are going to be great. They can't get any worse. I think, from a real estate perspective, a lot of struggle, took place mid 2022 to, basically, 24. I think we kind of started steadying the ground a little bit. And so once we started steadying the ground, as far as like, hey, this is my, it can't get any worse, right? 23 was, it was the battle of attrition. A lot of people faced a lot of difficulties, just even surviving. Some loan officers had to take second jobs. Some people are out of the business. Some people didn't want to renew their license. They may just do the CE, but they haven't closed a deal in over 2 years. I talked to a loan officer a couple months ago, and she had told me, like, I haven't closed a deal this year. So I mean, there's still a lot of people out there that are struggling on finding, just a base of people that, trust them, know them, like them, and trust them to, get the work done. And so, I always credit, my audience. I credit my community, and the people that have trusted in me to help you close on a purchase, whether it's primary investments. So, I appreciate every opportunity that I get, and I try to do the best I can. That's all I can do. We got a question. We're going to take questions early today. So if you do have questions, bring them in. Help me out today. I said, what shocked you the most about today's numbers? You know, Today's numbers, I would have to know exactly, David, what you're referring to, but I would say that, just when I look around, I see a lot of people still kind of nervous overall because it's really, we're going into the unknown. One of the things that were unknown is who's going to be the next federal chairman of the Federal Reserves. They did come out and say, "Hey, that's going to be something that we're going to hear about this year," which is a little surprise. And so now there's a lot of expectations and wondering who's the next Fed chair. Who's going to be the person that's going to be leading the crew, and so they think, depending on who it is, that may, give us some kind of a guiding light per se into how the Fed are going to really react starting next year. Once again, Jerome Powell, who's been running the show since 2016, is, everyone in anticipation is not going to get renewed. He's going to be let go May of 26. And that's why they're even willing to potentially tell us who the next Fed chairman is, because they know he's a sitting, sitting duck. He's dead man walking in May of 26. So, that's going to change, just we're going to have to learn about this person. What's their fundamentals? What are their beliefs? Do they have to see reports earlier? Do they have to see reports? Do they want to see? They don't want to kind of forecast where they think the market's going to go, or they want to read the reports and then make decisions. So, there's going to be a huge change and a pivot, and we all kind of are anticipating who it is. So it might be better that we know, and then it gives us enough time to kind of do a deep dive into that person. And I think that will be interesting. Do you think monthly payments will rise even more in 2025? I appreciate the question, or I think you might have meant 26, but yeah, no, I think, well, depending on where you are. I mean, we recently had a show talking about Cook County, who's the second largest county in the nation. And as the second largest county in the nation, we just got our tax bill November 14th. While all of America knows what their tax bill is, we just got our tax bill. Kind of a crazy scenario and kind of crazy storyline in that. And so, that's really forced the hand of consumers. And we saw a spike of 25% spike in Cook County on taxes. So a lot of people are hurting because their tax bill went up and their mortgage payments went up. So depending on where you live, we do anticipate purchase prices going up, obviously with anticipation of rates going down. We believe that when rates go down, more people will be able to qualify, and then therefore that might boost up the rates again, once again. So that's something that we're going to have to kind of consider and wait on. Happy Tuesday, Dante. Well, happy Tuesday to you. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in today, maybe checking us out. And I look forward to having you on the show. All right. So I look forward to definitely having you on the show. So appreciate you. Thank you. And then let's see. What's the biggest financial trap first-time buyers fall into? Great question, John. Great question. I think it's different. It's different based on the decades that we're in. When I was a first-time home buyer, the mindset was to buy a condo, buy a townhome. That's the best way to go. It's going to appreciate in value, and then you're going to sell it, and then you're going to buy again, and then what you're going to buy bigger. You're going to step up. So this was over 2 decades ago, that when I was a first-time home buyer. So that was the mindset then. The mindset was to, basically buy something small, let it appreciate in value, sell it, take that will become your big down payment. So now you go buy the big boy house, with the wife and the kids and the dog and the I guess the white picket fence and all that good stuff, the American dream. But that has changed now. When I deal with a lot of first-time home buyers, they're coming out the gates. They want the forever home. That wasn't a topic. That wasn't a terminology that was used 20 years ago. Now people want the forever home. But the difference is also too, when I was a first-time home buyer, the average age of a first-time home buyer was 27, which is different, right? Single, probably not married, no kids, maybe one if you had one. So a little bit more flexible in nature. But now you're talking about the average first-time home buyer is 40 years old. So it is kind of makes sense that they would want a forever home because they're planning on living there for the next 30 years. They got the wife, they probably have one on the way, a bun in the oven, as they say, and they're trying to hurry, hurry, hurry. Let's go get this house. So, it is a situation that I think the financial trap is not having a game plan, a strategy that works well for you. I think the internet is great and it's phenomenal. It's taught me a lot of things, but I also have to kind of put the pen to paper and do the work myself. I have to do the work myself and know, hey, is this something, a strategy that is he talking to me? Yesterday we were talking about a real estate investor in Ohio, and he was talking about buying 6 properties in 2 years. And so when he was talking about buying 6 properties in 2 years, there was a little bit of a concept where I was like, well, who is he talking to? Is he talking to me? Should I be buying 6 properties in 2 years? And so we kind of did the numbers. I had to kind of, break it down, pencil and paper, and like, okay, so if I bought this 2 and I bought these 4 and I did it, well, even if the valuations of the properties initially were, $100,000 and the ARV, the after repair value was $300,000, come to find out, you would need to be able to be ready to invest over $750,000. $750,000. Now, I kind of used ChatGPT a little bit and I said, well, who has $750,000? And primarily speaking, the majority of those types of folks, besides, music artists, basketball players, football players, etc., are 55 to 65 years old, the common person, right? 55 to 65 years old, might be, a manager, supervisor, HR specialist, what have you, a business owner that's been, in business for, 10 plus years, all these types of traits that, don't really equate to me right now. That's not really me and who I am. So, the reality is, yeah, that probably is not me that he's speaking to. So my point of the story is, you got to be mindful that when you're out there listening to these, gurus, as I call them, they're saying some right stuff and they're saying some good stuff, but they may not be talking to you. They're really talking to one specific niche in the marketplace, but you just, because you like real estate or you hear about mortgage lending, it just so happens that you're on there too and you hear it, but he's not talking to you. He knows that you don't have the financial means necessary for him to be, a consultant for you. He knows that you don't have the ability to maybe be able to generate something like that magnitude. So you can learn from him. You can take the skill set and just until once you get to that point, maybe one day it will be you, but not at that point is it you. So I think people have to be mindful. Always, what they say, always take a grain of salt of what you hear, and understand that some of this, that you hear online is not really catered or geared towards you. He's talking to, but he doesn't want to, cancel you out because he doesn't know. He doesn't know who's out there that might be listening to us today that it might resonate with. And so I think that's a part of our show, and that's why we do Epic Lunch and Learn. I think a part of the reason is we want to, disseminate information and kind of explain to you, hey, how we see things and how it's benefit clients that I've worked with. Obviously, I work with clients and families every month. It's for me, it's what I have to do, and it's what I've been blessed to be able to do. And so I help a vast variety of people. Some folks are just trying to buy their first home. And then we talk about down payment assistance and grant money. Some people want to be investors, real estate investors. They want to do the BRRRR. They want to do the fix and flip. They want some ideas of like, hey, how do you think this can help me? I just had a conversation, and it's almost like I'm a professional telemarketer. Sometimes I'm like, is that all I am? But I'm a financial doctor in a sense. At the same time, my job is to disseminate this information, but also figure out what are the pain points, what are the issues that you're going through in your life, how I can benefit you, showing you the way that mortgage tools and mortgage products can help you. and better your situation. Sometimes you don't have to be in a bad situation to be in a better one. All right. You don't have to be in a bad situation to be in a better one. So sometimes people will, oh, I don't need to talk to him. I'm fine. But could you be better? What if I had something that can make you better? Would you take it? Would you want to know what it is? So don't get too confident. Sometimes I'm not going to be confident when we go into a different space of something that I don't know. Right. I think I know mortgages pretty good. Definitely played basketball at a high level, pretty good at that. I've been watching football for probably 40 years, so I'm pretty knowledgeable at that. But even still, if I'm around a bunch of NFL players and they're talking about zigzag 23, 46, double nut go, I don't know what they're talking about. And I might have to sit back and be quiet and say, hey, what was that? And why does that work? So I think more conversation, communication needs to be expressed. You have to be willing to open up so you can receive some of this information that can benefit you and put you in a better situation. Talking to a lady who's doing very well for herself, and we were looking at possibly refinancing, and she's like, $150 savings per month doesn't move the needle for her. That's not a big ordeal. And that's okay. For some of you out there that are listening to me, if I could save you $150, $80, $100, that's a lot. Man, that's a breather. For some of you that says, hey, you don't have to pay your December payment. Hey, great news. You don't have to pay your January mortgage payment. Man, dude, you just saved me. That money now I can shift it over and pay for Christmas gifts. I don't have to, rack up debt. I can just use the money I already had. So there's benefits, short-term benefits, not long-term, but short-term benefits are there for some people, and they need it and they want it, and it makes sense. But for others, that's not going to move the needle. That's not going to motivate them. But if I can save you $100,000 in interest, now that might pique your interest. Oh, how do I save $100,000? How do I cut my term? How can I keep the payment I'm paying now, but only have 25 years left or 20 years left or 15 years? Can you show me how to do that? Those are things, and those are items that I have and I possess, and that's what I show people. Oh, a 2-1 buy down. What's that? You mean I can have an interest rate less than the going rate right now on a purchase? Wow, tell me how I can do that. So those are conversations we have on a regular basis. I was talking to a lady this morning, and we were talking about she's going to basically start selling her properties to her kids because she wants her kids to start growing and having something. And we talked about the concept of this thing, especially you guys have heard it in life insurance, called death benefit. And a death benefit ultimately is, when you die, here's the gift that you're giving to you. It's the last gift you're going to give to your kids. And it's really a cool thing, and it makes sense. But what we started, really pushing on and maybe saying, maybe we need to tweak this, is people are living longer. Now, I know the pandemic kind of shortened us a little bit, shortened our lives a little bit, but people are living longer. And so overall, if people are living longer, are we delaying the benefit too much? That's kind of my fear. If we're delaying the benefit too much, are we missing out? And that's the thing I want you guys to think about, because delaying the benefit can be a detriment to really who the gift was intended to give in the first place. And I know, when I have Vince on Mondays, we talk about it a lot too. Is the overall arching conversation of, hey, what if instead of waiting until I die to give this gift, what if I give the gift now? And because we do understand, some of us understand the cost of money, and we understand inflation, right? We've kind of felt this inflation thing kind of hit us, right? The what was it? The Happy Meal used to be $2.99, right? It's double that, if not a little bit even more. the value meals have gone up, right? So we do understand the cost of beef has risen. Bananas have risen. So we have seen that inflation erodes our money, our dollars and cents. Over time, things are more expensive. Okay, we really have seen that, fast, as we've moved on in life, we kind of see this now, right? So everyone kind of understands these concepts. And so we have to understand, if we're waiting until we die to pass on the gift, is that too late? If you were going to give them a gift, let's just say 50,000, or and you gave it to them 30 years before you pass away, how much could that 50,000 be by the time you do pass away? So, there's a new concept, a new something to think about, that death benefits should be given earlier in life before later in life. Because if you've already earmarked, hey, when I die, I'm going to pass out $50,000 to my kids. Well, how much is that $50,000 really worth at the time you pass away? As far as purchasing power, I know 50 is still 50, but the purchasing power kind of goes away. So we have to be mindful of these things. These are things that not necessarily were ever taught to us. These things are not necessarily ever provided to us, but because of the internet, because of having voices out there, and I'm trying to be one of those voices to make you think about things differently. I think that's the conversations that we need to have. It's okay to open up. I'm not, now I don't want to give my social security number out to 300 people. I'm not going to give my social security out to 1,000 people. But is there a close knit board of directors that we all should start having, that we share ideas and share concepts? Hey, I make this amount of money, and hey, I'm thinking about this. Who do you think I should talk to? Hey, this is my situation. What do you think? And getting different perspectives. And I really try to, really do that in my life. I try to get different perspectives. I get my wife, I get my friends, my buddies, hey, talk to my mom. It's different, right? I mean, get someone that's a millennial, a Gen Zer, a baby boomer. They're all going to have different input. They're all receiving information from different locations. My buddy goes on Reddit. How many of you guys go on Reddit? I mean, that's not a platform I ever go on at all. I don't go on Reddit at all. I know of Reddit, obviously, and he's married to Serena Williams, so he gets a kudos for that. But besides that, I don't know Reddit. That's not a place where I get my information from. So I am curious every once in a while. When I'm goofing around, I'll be like, give me the top 5 websites that you go to. And I'll ask my buddies this, because I'm just curious on where they get information from. I'm still a ESPN guy. I'm still going to go on ESPN and get my information. So it's just one of those things that, where you get your information will help kind of, change your perspective on things. And so we have to understand that situation. And it's very interesting to me. So we'll take some more questions here. Could 25 be the year most people shift toward renting instead? Yeah, something about 25 versus 26. I think, I don't know. I think, the Grant Cardones of the world buy the investment property before you buy the primary residence. There's a lot of people that have that kind of argument or vantage point. And I think overall, you are seeing some people willing to say, hey, you know what? I'd rather rent than to own right now. I think it's about cash flow. I think about, affordability. And obviously with the prices going up, affordability has been a major concern. I look at renting primarily as people that are either, probably retirement age. They don't have the kids, they don't have the responsibilities, and they really don't like to deal with the maintenance versus, and I think single people, right? In their 20s and 30s, I think they're just, and that's based on affordability until, housing becomes a need. I still see housing as a great asset. and it's probably something that everyone should consider. But remember, I think the high benchmark was 69%, 69 to 71% home ownership. So I think there's a level of there always will be renters. There's nothing wrong with renters. It's just, when you look at the studies indicate that, you know, you basically 10x if you're a homeowner, from appreciation, from net worth standpoint. It's hard to find a lot of renters that are super successful. Eventually they end up buying. I look forward to it as well. Glad I was able to catch you live today. Well, yes, appreciate you listening. Yeah, definitely look forward to having you on. I think next year you said, so I will keep an eye out. You let me know when you're ready. And hopefully you liked our podcast. Finally came out. I had to do some changes with our production, and but definitely looking forward to working with you next year, and promoting and learning about the tax codes and all the changes that have been made. One of the things that we do here on Epic Spotlight is we do have we have a podcast that features every Thursday. We've been going every Thursday for probably the last 2 to 3 months, where we're going every Thursday. We have a new guest on, and we definitely love to have Timbaland Bowens on, and so we're looking forward to having Timbaland on the show. We went to a live show Monday through Wednesday to try to talk about new news and notes, and we thought that would be good to kind of get our opinions on, the 50-year mortgage, or the portable mortgage, or hey, this rule just came out. We just want to let you guys know, also have have this be somewhat of a hotline, that if you had questions about mortgages, hey, our grant programs out there, hey, my realtor said this, or hey, my loan officer said this, what do you think? And so that's what we kind of did. That's basically what our focus was. Our focus was the fact that we wanted to give you kind of live, on time, an opportunity for you to listen in and get news and notes right off the bat. Our podcast kind of shifted to really the 4 pillars of my life, which are happiness, love, health, and wealth. And the way I kind of looked at the podcast as I evolved it was, happiness is internal, internal happiness. What makes me happy? It's really hard for me to make anyone else happy if I'm not happy, right? Depression, mental health is a real thing, right? And we've taken more consideration to it. We've heard about the athletes that have had to call a timeout, literally and figuratively, because of mental health, right? Just too much stress that they put on themselves. And that's a tough position, because Gen X and baby boomers, we don't really understand that. If you were mentally weak, that was a downside. Like, what's wrong with you? You're weak. But it seems like, society has gotten softer, good and bad to it, good and bad. But due to the softness nature, we're more considerate of understanding about mental health, and considering that, hey, things might be really stressful in someone's life, as life be life, and sometimes, right? Life be life. And so, once again, happiness is internal, external is love. How do you love someone? How do you appreciate people? How do you can be a leader in the room? I think it's important in my day to day. I need to love my, quote unquote, my teammates, the people that I work with, every day. I need to love on them, but I need to be a good leader. And so, you can love someone, emotionally, we could talk about physically, but overall, socially, a social love. And so, we look to have conversations with people like that, so we can become a better person, externally and internally. And then obviously wealth, goes without saying. We have to accumulate resources, i.e., money, in order for us to retire happy and be able to do the things that we want to do. We talked about a little bit yesterday that retirement is about having a choice. You want to have a choice. Some people want to work till 90 years old. They want to die in their work chair. So be it. Tip the cap to you. Others want to go on trips and exotic places and see the world for the first time. Want to go to Japan, want to go to, walk on the China wall. You want to, go to Australia. You want to hang out with kangaroos, what have you. but you want to be able to have the choice to do that. And so we have to accumulate enough resources, i.e., money, so you can have the choice to do those things when you get older. Now, some people will fight me on that and say, YOLO, Dante, YOLO, you only live once. And I want to do that when I'm 40, and I don't want to do that when I'm 65 because, health concerns, my body's breaking down. I can't do as much as I wanted to do when I was younger. So, and I do understand that. I respect that. So, I mean, there has to be that good median of, moderation, right? We can't just save all the money until we're 70 and then we're dead at 69. So what was good? You can't take it with you, right? But you want to make sure that you, in moderation, do all these experiences. I'm a big, firm fan of experiences. How about you guys? Are you guys? I just love experiences. I just love being in the place. I was talking to a guy when we were working out, and he said he was there game one of 1997 Chicago Bulls versus the Utah Jazz. That was the finals back in 1997. And he said he had baseline seats, and he was just mesmerized by the athleticism and just Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and just being in that place, in that moment where greatness was taking place, right? And I love that. I mean, I personally just love that. When he told me that, I was just like, man, that's so cool. That's so cool. And for me, those are the types of things that I enjoy. I enjoy having experiences, whether it's going to a place or being in the spot and just having those moments that, those are the memories, right? They can't take them away, right? You just can't take those memories away. And having those experiences are super cool. And so, that's what we're trying to do here is accumulate enough for choices that can be made so you can enjoy those experiences. So saving money on your mortgage can help you maybe save up for a trip, right? A trip to Florida, a trip to Montana. I see more and more people, wanting to go into the Outback Jack world and, ride horses or, go to North Dakota, and Mount Rushmore and all that stuff. Is it South Dakota or North Dakota? I always make a mistake on there. I think Bismarck is North Dakota. I think Mount Rushmore. Oh my gosh, people are going to get mad at me. But yeah, I think it's North Dakota. But it's one of those things. Having experiences, things that I remember when I did that. Oh man, that was so much fun. And so that's the beauty of mortgages. The mortgage, which is probably the biggest expense that you have, is your mortgage. It's your house that you have. If we were able to save you money in that fashion, so then you would have more money to allocate to having experiences. So that's super cool. Let's go here. Oh, thanks for keeping it raw. Should buyers focus on income or savings first? That's a good question. I mean, it's hard to save if you don't make money. And like I said, I'm a fan of Grant Cardone in the respect that, what he's talking about is he is talking about offense, being on offense. So I would encourage more people to be offensive minded. I think too many times we're very passive. We're very passive and we allow things to just be dictated to us. I always talk about my brother. My brother, love him to death, and I always admired his work ethic. And it's kind of interesting. Me and my brother were 8 years apart, so we're 8 years apart. So we don't, when I was out chasing girls, he was watching Power Rangers, right? That's what I always normally say. And so, there's a situation where I wasn't necessarily there, so it wasn't like he was watching me as like, yeah, Dante's got work ethic, and so do I, or I want to be like that. It's just ingrained into us. I think it's just the Royster way. But it was a situation where, even when he was, he's in California now, but when he was here, he had a 9-to-5 job. And then when the job was over, he's a comedic screenwriter. He was working from 6 to 11 o'clock, on his craft. He was at Second City and IO, for those that know the art world. He was in all those locations doing stand up. He was doing shows, and I'm just like, wow, and that's someone that it just exhausted the possibilities. He didn't limit himself just to a 9 to 5 job. And I just admired that work ethic. And I love it. And I just encourage more people, like, hey, the 9 to 5 may pay the bills, but is that your dream? Is that really, do you have something that you're aspiring to do? Can it be monetized? Can you make it happen? And if you can, more power to you. And sometimes you have to put it in. I mean, kind of cold or callous, but you can sleep when you're dead. You can take a dirt nap, but right now we got to grind. We got to make it happen. And it's all about accumulating. Obviously he had a goal to get out to California, and he achieved his goal. He got out of the Midwest, couldn't stand the snow, and I don't blame him. It's cold here. It's about to be Arctic winds tomorrow in the Midwest. So, here's a guy, my brother, that, had a dream, had a goal, and he made it happen for himself. So kudos to him. And so I think it's about income first. I think you need to establish income, but savings is a habit. And so I mean, everything is always a thin line between one way or the other. But you want to be conscious that you habits are habitual. And so when you make money, no matter what you make, you want to save. Start off with 10%. Now, if you go to financial advisors or whoever, they're going to tell you 20%, and you'll get there. But start by always paying yourself first. You're always going to have to pay somebody. Someone's got their hand out. Whether it's the cable bill, the cell phone bill. I got violin lessons. I got school tuition. You name it, I got it. So you're always going to have to pay, but always pay yourself first. And then look to always give yourself a raise. So just earlier today, I called my financial advisor and gave myself a raise, paying myself first. Because I said, hey, what's important? You know what? I want to make sure I'm paying myself first, and I want to give myself a raise. And so when I pay myself first, I'm taking care of me first, and then others. So it's habitual. Once you get into the habit, always try to do automatic deductions, so you don't even see it, and it's just a part. That becomes a bill. Sometimes I look at my bills and they're like, what's that? Oh yeah, that's me paying myself. Well, why you have that as a debt? Yeah, it's a debt because it goes, and I'm not going to touch it. I don't want to touch it. I want to know it's a debt. And so you have to pay yourself first. So I encourage you always to pay yourself first, but always focus on the money, and you want to try to maximize just who you are, the value of you, the valuation. And so if we evolve, and if you know more, do more. If you are better, be better. And so that's kind of the concept that I have in there. I think there was one more. Is it better to wait out the market or buy before pricing climbs again? Good question. I think someone explained it to me, but yes, I would rather buy low, because one thing about buying low is, you should have a lower payment. So you might have a higher interest rate, but a lower payment. So I'd rather buy low, and then, instead of waiting, because I think you have to start the clock. One thing I was talking to the investor about this morning was, I said, the clock that you sign, these mortgages, the way they're set up are, generally 30-year fixes. And so what is a 30-year fix? It's 360 payments of principal that you're agreeing to. Now, attached to each principal payment, you have interest that you have to pay. But you have guaranteed them, and you have signed on the dotted line to make 360 principal payments. So if you can double up on the principal payments, then in theory, you're saving on the interest, because they have the interest just earmarked for each month that it's attached to. So if you can double up, then you can actually save your money. You save yourself interest. So I think it's important to start that clock as soon as possible. You want to start yourself as soon as you can with buying. So when you delay, you're delaying everything. I mean, why allow things to go up? I mean, we've seen even in slow economies that it generally, appreciation is about 3 to 5% in a slow economy. So that's what we've already seen. So, it's going to go up. And then obviously if rates drop, the valuations are just going to skyrocket. And you just want to start that clock, and focus on trying to pay things off as quickly as possible. So I appreciate that, Dan. And then let's see. Yes, paying yourself is just as important as paying the other bills in your business. Yes, Timbaland, I agree. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, no, I agree. I mean, my dad said that to me. He started back in the 80s talking about pay yourself first, 10%. I was like, Dad, I made $100. I was a paper boy. That was my first job. I was a paper boy, and it was like, pay yourself first. $10? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just put it in. Just put it in. So I've always had that mindset just to, anytime I get a check, okay, what's, at least 10%, nowadays, 20, if I can do 30%, that'd be great. But, you have to have that mindset that, at the end of the year, if you make $80,000, how much did you save? And for your future. So if you made $80,000 a year, is it 8,000? That would be 10%. Is it 16,000? That'd be 20%. Is it 24,000? That'd be 30%. You start doing the math on that. If you could save 30%, which is $24,000, you could actually get, in 4 years, right? In 4 years, that's $96,000. Is that right? Yeah, quick math. Yeah, $96,000. That's almost $100,000 you've saved in 4 years. You do that 8 years. Quick math. What? 192. Almost at $200,000 in 8 years. So we have definitely from a human being perspective, we've complicated things. We've made things much harder. We have definitely put in a position of making things much harder on ourselves. We've created the gray. Really, I said this a couple episodes ago, but I felt like, and I haven't figured it out 100% yet, but I was like, you know what? To be honest with you, I feel like life is like a math equation. I really do. I really feel like math it's just a life is just a math equation. It's just a, algebraic and we just got to put it together, and then we got to stick with it. We got to be disciplined. We got to be determined and focus on our goals. But, it is hard. It's definitely hard for some. Life be life. And I do understand that life, throws us some curveballs, things that we don't expect, but we just have to handle them. We have to do a better job of handling the situation and knowing that, hey, that's the reality. That's why you have to save. You have to save because life be life. And, there's going to be some curveballs. There's going to be things you didn't expect to happen. And you're going to have to be able to handle them and make it happen. And that's where offensive minded, approach, which is so important. And, Timbaland, once looking forward to having you on because, I always say we got to make the money, but we got to make sure no one takes this from us. And who better to take it from us than the government? So we have to know the tools and the skill sets to make sure we limit, hey, we're going to have to, we pay to live in America. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We pay to live here, but how much we pay, I think it's really up to us knowing the rules, the laws, and making sure that we have a wealth of knowledge. I really look at some of these tax advisors that have a unique capability because they're spending the time reading these things, and they're telling us what to do and how to do it. And so we have to be better at maneuvering the tax code, understanding what is there, and how we can really do a better job at minimizing some of this expense that we're just shelling out. Right. Our biggest expenses in life are taxes. Yeah. I'm starting to see that more and more. They are. And it's like, man, I can't get away from it. it's crazy. Hey, let me take a time out right here real quick. This episode today is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, investing, or refinancing, call Epic today. That's 708-905-5300. That's 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Now, after the show is over, when you are done, we have our newest podcast that's available. It's with Aubrey Earhart. She is the CEO of Practice 42. I want you to discover tangible strategies for scaling your law firm, eliminating chaos, and building an unstoppable team, even in a virtual world. Audrey shares her inspirational journey, the best kept secrets for firm profitability, essential estate planning tips, and the latest crucial legal industry updates. Whether you're a law firm owner, business leader, or seeking fresh leadership insights, don't miss this extraordinary episode packed with actionable guidance, motivational stories, and the keys to transformative success in law, life, and business. I had a great chance to experience Audrey. It was a great show. Hopefully, you guys enjoy it. If you're on Facebook or LinkedIn right now, make sure you go over to YouTube, check it out. It was super cool just to have her. She had a lot of energy. I was like, whoa! I wasn't even ready for that. So super cool. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. We do have some preferred listings. And then let me put this in the chat. Now, don't forget, my preferred listings are on my website. It's DanteRoyster.com. So when you have an opportunity, if you can go to DanteRoyster.com, you can see all the preferred listings that we have, but I'll just name a couple for you. We do have 240 North Park, Glenwood, Illinois. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath going for $240,000. Contact Jennifer Simmons, 773-494-9476. We have 2602 Hummingbird Lane in Humboldt, Texas. That's a 3-bed, 2-bath going for $284,444. Contact CJ Jones for 281-356-0203. We have 14926 Kenton Avenue in Midlothian, Illinois. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath going for $339,940. Contact Sebastian Kupiec at 773-430-8988. And then we have 6200 South Marsh Lane in Matson, Illinois. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath, single family, going for $270,000. Contact L'Oreal Flowers, 312-774-4230. Now we have about 14 preferred listings. So definitely when you have the opportunity, go ahead and check out DanteRoyster.com. Let me make sure I put it here in the chat. DanteRoyster.com. Make sure you check that out. You can see all the preferred listings. We'd love to get you pre-approved for a home and help you get that house going, whether it's a primary or an investment property. Now, we got some stats of the day. Let's see. A couple stats that I found that I wanted to. The median mortgage payment right now is about $2,035 per month. So keep that in mind. The median mortgage payment is $2,000, $2,035 per month. They said 53% of buyers in 2025 paid at or above list price. I thought that was important to note that, obviously there's still a lot of competition out there. I think the birth rate makes the biggest difference. The number one population right now is millennials. Millennials have surpassed baby boomers. And you know who else surpassed baby boomers? Gen Zers. Gen Zers is the second largest population. The smallest population we have right now is the Gen Xers, myself included. So not a lot of Gen Xers out there. I mean, I guess our parents just weren't having kids, but a lot of Gen Zers, a lot of millennials. And so they're the ones, still buying. So they're at that point, right? When you're 23 to 42 years old, that's just that time of season that you're doing in your lifetime is buying up homes. And so that's why we're seeing, a great majority are, paying at list price or just above. So I thought that was fascinating to share with you. Homes still sold are in average about 32 days. That's faster than historical norms. So, things are still moving fairly quickly, so 32 days, so it's just a little bit over a month. What else did I notice? Some stats that I thought were interesting. 64% of renters still say they want to buy within 5 years. So I still believe that a lot of people do want to buy, but they can't. There might be a particular reason. Now, I'm always going to be biased that a mortgage broker can help you out because we're versatile. I always say I'm the Army Swiss knife. So, I just have a lot of different products and programs. I have a lot of different lenders I can search through to find a way to try to help you. So, if that is a scenario that you said, well, I went to my bank and they told me I can't buy, then you may want to call me. I've been called on, hey Dante, can you help me? My tax returns are not great, but I got bank statements. We have a bank statement program that can help, especially self-employed people. We also have a lot of different programs, from renovation opportunities. Oh, I want to stay here, but this house needs a lot of work. We can help you. I'm working with a lady right now, purchasing a property, and she's going to put about $120,000 worth of renovations. So, I mean, so we're definitely in the mix when it comes to that. It says 72% of millennials say homeownership is part of their long-term plan. So there's a lot of people out there that want to buy, but for whatever reason, they're not buying. My thing to tell them is, if you can, you should, and don't wait. I know sometimes there's a level of trying to wait because, oh, you're hoping that rates will go down, but I just don't think we'll see. Hopefully, we don't see 2 to 3%, because that would just skyrocket the inflation again and put us in another, just crazy situation that we had later in 2022. So I want to say, right now is a great time. Anywhere from 5-6% interest rates. Let's go buy. Let's go scoop up as much as possible. It said 48% of people who want to buy are stalled only because of misinformation. And I thought that was important to note because, information that on this channel is going to be, the real deal, good information. So if some of these 48% of people who want to buy but are stalled only because of misinformation, please tell them, first of all, give this a like so the algorithm monster can do its thing. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel. We're on the pace to try to get to 5,000 subscribers. So, we're trying to get, people's attention out there of this information that we're disseminating. And then also, too, make sure you tell people about this channel. Make sure you share this with friends and family that know this, because you're going to get real information here, and it's very important. Also, I guess I should plug the book right over my shoulder. So, once again, I have a book. It would be a great holiday book, for those who like to, hey, let me buy a book for Christmas. It's the Ultimate Mortgage Guide. I wrote the book. And really, people always ask, why did you write this book? I was still getting the same questions 20 years from the day I was getting them. Like, so I started in 2002. I'm still getting the same questions now that people just don't know. I mean, our school systems have let us down in that regard. And so here I am trying to answer these questions. So I said, there should be a baseline of what people know that's available. Now, how to apply it and how it works, let me do that as far as explaining. But as far as just knowing what's available to you, check out this book. It breaks down some key information that you should have. And so if you haven't been in the market in a while, it's been 5 to 6 years, you haven't, now you're starting to, I guess maybe this book is solid, and it doesn't matter where you are. That's super cool. So if you're down in Kentucky with Timberland, if you're in Vermont, if you're in New Hampshire, if you're in Delaware, if you're in California, Washington, some of those states I can't do loans in, but it's okay. This information is still good. So you can get it, ask these questions to the loan officer you're working with, and this can at least make you aware of what's going on. So the Ultimate Mortgage Guide, it's available on Amazon. Make sure you check it out. Grab a copy today. All right. It's so crazy. I mean, at first I'm like, oh my God, it's an hour. What am I going to say? What am I going to do? And then I look up and it's like, we got 2 minutes left to go. So super crazy. Time flies, but we're going to be back tomorrow. We will have Jess Ford on with me. Jess she's a loan officer from Michigan, and she just got a clear to close on one of her deals. So that's super cool. So we'll have a conversation with her. We'll talk with her, and we'll have some topics to share, and we'll have, and then we'll get everything going. And then hopefully we'll reschedule with the guest that I was hoping that was going to be here today. Hopefully she'll be doing better, and we'll get her all segueing up for next week. But yeah, I think this is it. We hit it right at that hour. Let me see. Anything else I want to say? It says the typical U.S. home value sits around 360,000. Thought that was a good, interesting, just to have an earmark. And let's see. I think that's about it. So guys, thank you so much. You guys made it super easy today. Appreciate you. Great show. Catch you soon. Appreciate you, Timbaland. I appreciate that. I did it with the guests not being here, but I did it with all you guys putting the comments in the chat. It really helped me through the hour. So everyone, have a great rest of the day. We'll be back tomorrow with Just Ford, and everyone have an epic day.